Gary King is my favourite character to ever play because he is essentially a bad guy, really. I mean, bless his heart, he doesn't mean to be, but he's just hobbled by his own desire to be young and to recapture the days of his youth.
Come on, you muppets!
I like this idea of like the pub crawl being like medieval quest with an extremely irresponsible King Arthur at the helm of it.
That's Gary King.
So, the plan is, we're going to go back to Newton Haven, we are going to do the Golden Mile, and this time, we are going to make it to the world's end. Everybody's in.
What, even Andy?
Nick Frost is playing Andy Knightley, who, when he was an 18-year-old, he was the rugby boy brawler and kind of like the sort of the ultimate beer monster. And now there's an unspoken incident which has sort of severed their friendship forever.
Mr. Knightley.
Felicity.
You have a friend here to see you.
No, I don't. Andy's moved on. You know, he's a big shot lawyer with a family, and I imagine him driving some kind of high-powered 5 Series BMW. And Simon's character hasn't, you know, he's exactly the same. And that's where a lot of the tension lies.
What the hell is this? Why are we even here? We are here to get annihilated.
Martin Freeman plays Oliver, who is somewhat based on like an amalgam of some friends of mine. You know, he's the kid at school who would have been a yuppie.
Oliver's constantly on the phone, constantly elsewhere doing deals or, you know, listening to business news. I think the idea is that he's slightly detached in the 5 because he always had pretensions at school of being a sort of Gordon Gekko, and now he's getting to act out that fantasy life as a reasonably successful estate agent.
Gary, WTF?
It's good to see you too, oh man.
His Achilles heel is the fact that he has a pretty sister that all the boys fancy.
All right, Sam.
Oh, crumbs.
My character is Sam Chamberlain, who is the younger sister of Oliver Chamberlain, who's played by Martin Freeman.
All right, big brother. Gary.
The relationship she has with Paddy's character is very sweet. You know, they obviously liked each other when they were young, but it never happened.
It was like Stephen's great love when he was a teenager. He just fell head over heels for Rosamund's character. He can't believe that he's back in the presence of the love of his life, but also there's that threat of Gary being on the fringes of the swamp.
So do you want it?
Stephen Prince is like the kid at school who was like the second most handsome. Like we always call him the George Harrison of like the group. Stephen fancied girls, but Gary got there first. And so there's this kind of rivalry where Gary, at school at least, had always triumphed.
It is not the same anymore, Gary. And it's not that the town's changed, we have changed.
I play Peter, who is kind of, he's the wallflower of the group. He's the one who could never really pull the girls and just was a member of the gang because his old man was minted and they could all go in his swimming pool.
Hello, Peter. He's the guy Gary goes to first, Peter, because he knows he'll get Peter straight away, because Peter's always been his fan, you know. And there's a tragedy in that, you know, and a sweetness.
Peter kind of idolises Gary. Gary was the coolest guy in the school, and so Peter always wanted to hang around with Gary. So even when Gary comes up with the idea of the pub crawl, and they're all both in their 40s, it still appeals to Peter because he still feels as insecure as he did when he was 16.
Let battle commence.